Welcome back to the Ohio Business Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pohl. Today we are joined with Charlie Denk of Stir Studio Kitchen. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Give us a quick background on Stir and just kind of what your role in is it and how big the whole team is and all of that.
So I started Stir. I started writing the business plan pretty much on my 25th birthday, which was 2.5 years ago. I was an engineer before that. And what we do is we host hands-on instructor-led cooking classes, but we come at it from a much more entertainment focus. So we're not there to really teach you how to cook, and we're certainly not going to leave with any sort of certification and start to finish cooking knowledge. But what you are going to have is a really good time. It's just sort of a different form of entertainment as opposed to the restaurant experience or bars and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And we have studios in Chagrin Falls in Ohio City. So. And then as far as the team, myself, I still do a lot of the operations work, even some stuff on the culinary side. We have a director of operations full-time. She also dabbles a little bit in culinary, but really runs the show and keeps the engine flowing. And then just a handful of instructors part-time who usually have other gigs, but like to differentiate their experience.
So I believe I saw that you were an engineer beforehand, and then you jumped in on this, and you left that full-time job, correct?
Yep. So my degree is biological engineering, and I entered the construction industry for a big global general contractor, but with offices here in Cleveland. And I basically spent, I don't know, between interning and full-time, I spent about 7 years there, but sort of mentally checked out by the time I was about 24 and knew I wanted to do something on my own and just came back to the cooking class idea. So, and people think that coming from an engineering background to what I do now sounds so outrageous and outlandish, but it's really, I like to tell them engineering school and even being a professional engineer, it teaches you how to think, how to break down complex problems and solve issues and think really linearly and strategically and technically. So that's always helpful just to teach you how to learn and how to think. And in my former role at that company, I mean, I split my career into, at first I was managing small construction projects kind of on my own as a one-man band, like little interior fit outs and whatnot, renovations. Mm-hmm. So that taught me how to manage a team, manage a budget, manage a timeline, which I've carried over into my Stir career, absolutely. And then I had right before I left, I had an internal finance role at the company. So that taught me about payroll, forecasting. So it's not as crazy of a jump as people think.
Was there any specific reason you went into culinary like that?
So no, other than the fact that, so the real backstory of Stir is I went to a cooking class at a big box store retailer when I was in my teens, like 15 or 16 years old. I brought a girl there on a date. And so here's how the story goes. Let me put my computer on for 1 second. I went to go take this girl on a date. So I Googled cooking classes Cleveland, thinking that there was going to be some chic little boutique experience that we would find, kind of like there is in Europe, all throughout Italy and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing. It was just this big box store. Really, that was it. It was way out in the burbs. And it was $85 a person or something like that. So it was really expensive. Big deal for a high school kid like me. All of their classes were sold out for like a month in advance. So immediately that kind of struck a chord. I was like, holy smokes, what's going on here? And then when I got to the class, again, I'm there on a date just to have a nice experience. I don't really care about learning how to cook that night. I just want to entertain this girl and impress her.
Yeah.
Really, the cooking classes intention was to promote their retail products. They weren't there to entertain us, to provide a hospitable experience. They just wanted to get us in and out the door and hopefully leave with a blender. Mm-hmm. It was really sterile and kind of boring. And so that to me kind of just shot out. I was like, there is such a disconnect between what I was hoping for, what I was happily paying for, and what they're providing. And then everyone else in the room that night was just like me. And you could tell that everyone's just kind of like confused and dissatisfied. So right then and there, the idea was planted in my head that if I ever start a business, this seems like a pretty good opportunity. So when I decided I was going to strike out on my own, the corporate world wasn't for me. I just came back to this idea and I modeled it out on a piece of paper and really did a lot of homework and started doing the numbers. And I was like, what's wrong with this idea? Nothing. And it was just one of those kind of like, I don't know, it sounds cliche, but it was an epiphany. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. And I just went full steam.
So it was in the back of your head, you wrote it out, and you just, what was that process of actually implementing it? Were you still working, or what did that look like?
So, I mean, shame on me. The minute I wrote that down and sort of decided that's what I was ultimately going to do, I like mentally checked out of my corporate job, and I did kind of drag around a little bit and probably ruin my reputation in the corporate world. But yeah, so I wrote that business plan, really, just modeled it out. And then I took about a year and a half probably, where I was still working my 9-to-5 corporate job. And then on nights and weekends, I would go work in restaurants. And I even went to go work for that other cooking class, just kind of scope it out, like washing dishes, like basic back of the house, dirty stuff. They didn't know what my intention was, but I took that time. I took about a year of really hard work, working side gigs to learn the culinary business. And it's not rocket science. I mean, I probably really only needed a few months, but so that sharpened my cooking skills, really exposed me to the business. And looking back, I can't imagine having not done that. So, and then I signed a lease. Things just progressed. Signed a lease, started construction on our studio in Ohio City, our first studio, and quit my job about a month before we opened.
And what was the, like, getting people into the classes? What was that process like? Did it pick up pretty quickly, or?
All right. So this is one of my favorite things to talk to people about, especially other aspiring entrepreneurs. I think I was just super naive, which looking back is probably a good thing, because if I knew how hard it would have been, I probably never would have done it. But I was thinking, we got some good press too. We were in the paper, we were on TV ahead of opening. So I was thinking, man, I'm going to put out this website. I'm going to open the door, hang a shingle, and there's just going to be a line out the door, and it's going to be smooth sailing into the sunset. And it was really bad. It was really bad. And we opened in June, which was bad, which was dumb because it's sort of a cold weather thing to do. We opened in June, and I would say we had classes that were no shows, and we had a hard time getting anyone in the door until about August. To the extent that I was even thinking, you know what, I'm just going to bag this idea and sort of go back into the corporate world. This was dumb. And sure enough, you just hang on and you just keep executing and I was grinding, doing cold calling, just knocking on doors. And once the weather broke, it got cold. October, we started sort of turning the corner, and we had a really euphoric, pretty transformational first holiday season, that first December. So about 6 months after we opened. And that's when we never really looked back. We started getting a lot of corporate events coming in, and we started doing hundreds of people a month. So
now, was that because of the cold calling and the door to door, or was it just because of a seasonal thing?
It's funny you say that. It's probably just the natural progression of how these things go. It just takes time, just word of mouth exposure. But I don't know. I like to think that all those dozens of emails and phone calls and knocking on doors did help. And there were a few examples where I would just beg people, and eventually they came. Sure enough, they brought 15 people, and we executed, showed them a good time, and just a handful of those, and the wheels start turning.
So, are you looking to entertain corporate parties, or is it more of a retail? I sign up, like individually, I go with my girl or whatever, or is it a mix? What's that look like?
Okay, so we kind of run the gamut. Our business is about split up into thirds if times are good. Like public classes that we have at each studio, where you can just sign up like you would for a yoga class, and that is really common for like dates or just one or two friends. So you're amongst other strangers in the room, which is kind of a fun experience. That's about a third of our business. We do those on weekends primarily. Then we do a lot of private group classes for groups of friends or family, birthdays, bachelorettes, family get-togethers. Those are 8 to 20 people. Again, that's another third of our business, primarily on weekends. And then what's been big for us that I didn't foresee going into it is corporate outings. So team building exercises, client entertainment. When times are good, we're doing 1 or 2 of those a week, and those have been really effective.
Wow. Well, so when did you open up the second location?
We had our first class at the second location this past October. So right sort of in the middle of COVID.
Well, I mean, I love talking about COVID and how it affects businesses. So how did that initially affect your business? Just the one location.
So when COVID hit, we had a lot of momentum. Let's call it last March, because that's when it was. We had a lot of momentum coming off that holiday season. We were humming just at one studio, and it was primarily me doing most of the work, kind of by myself. And COVID hit, and obviously we shut down according to the government mandates. So we followed all the government mandates out of necessity. And there was a period of about maybe a month where I was really thinking that was the end of the road. I just couldn't foresee people coming back to a business like ours that's so interactive and public, especially with food. So I was pretty pessimistic, and the outlook was not, it was grim for a while. And then May rolls around. I think, if I remember correctly, we started classes back up in like June, this past June, at that one location still, and we got a really good reception, and people like really flooded back. It was kind of nuts. And so that restored my confidence, at least. And then I just had sort of a moment of clarity. I had been trying to attract a girl to help me run the business who had been applying and kind of knocking on our door for a while. So I was trying to bring her into the business. She's really talented, super good. And I just kind of said, you know what? It's June, things have come back a little bit. We're confident. Do you want to join the team? And while the world's still in a mess, and rents and leases are still so low, and landlords are on their heels, and people are maybe going to become more desperate to get out and do things, you want to go sign a lease and do a second studio. So we took a big risk, and we had some cash laying around. I think we had like 2 years of cash, which is unique for a business like ours. So I said, now or never. I'm going to get this competitive rate. And I have this talented individual to help me. So she came on full time. We opened a second studio, and that's sort of, we haven't looked back since. And I was going to say something else about that. Oh, and in the back of my mind, yes, we had cash on hand. Yes, I was going to get competitive rates. And if we were going to be around for another 5 or 10 years, whatever, it was going to be a good decision, because it was just going to set us up for success. But really what I thought in that second location, August came around and I started negotiating leases, and I'm like, more than anything, this is a sort of a marketing campaign. And when everyone is turning on the news and opening up newspapers and seeing this restaurant closed, small business is dying, if we can open the second location and just send the message that like, hey, we're still going, come join us. That would, I don't know, I think that would be sort of a wow moment in the eyes of our followers and our supporters. So trust me, we probably made it look a lot more rosy than it was. And under the water, we were flapping like a duck, and we were kind of scared and desperate, and it wasn't the greatest time in the world. But on the outside, people were probably looking at us saying, oh, I'm going to go try that place out. If they're opening a second location in the middle of a pandemic, then they must be good. And
yeah, they must be open. They must be, going back to normal in that way.
Yeah. So it was kind of an aggressive marketing move more than anything.
And that's actually a great marketing move, because everybody is cooking at home pretty much. And what's a great alternative than just to actually go to a place and learn, that is actually brilliant.
Yeah, it was fun, and it did work out. I mean, the area that we opened is a hot area, and we've been embraced. So, and like I said, our team is just rock stars. So We're good. We're humming.
So did that second location start off hot, or was it kind of the same way with the first one?
It's funny you say that. It definitely started off a lot better than the first. Still not outstanding. I mean, we are in the middle of a pandemic still, and so we're always wishing was better. But I think I gained so much perspective from that first experience that even if people weren't flooding in right away, I was so calm, and I was like, just takes time. And then you're able to portray that to your team. And I mean, the first time we did this, the first studio, I was just a mess emotionally for those 3 months when I was trying to get things going. And I stressed everyone out, and I just created a lot of tension. This second one, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. If no one comes till January, we got the cash. We don't care. Let's just do this. And I was so much more calm. And I think that just creates a lot of confidence and really bolsters your team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's key. I mean, you can't be a flailing fish, with people's paychecks on the line.
It was a hard lesson to learn.
Well, so you got the second location up. What is down the road? What's the next step for you guys?
Finally, I think I'm answering this question by just saying, I don't know. I spent a while being so ambitious and thinking that I would have everything mapped out, so strategic, and this milestone, 5 years, 10 years. And then the pandemic hit and kind of showed me that, this can all go to nothing, out of your control tomorrow. So my mindset now is kind of just like keep executing day by day by day, keep being as excellent as we can, and things will work out. And trust me, we're super ambitious. So when I say I don't know what's ahead, I think we're only allowed to say that if we are doing our best and if we're actually executing and are ambitious. You can't just sit back and say, "Oh, I don't know what's next," and hope for the best. But I don't know. If I had to guess, I think just a handful of regional locations, maybe 5 to 10. Keep everything sort of in the area. I don't really have any interest in building a huge corporate hierarchy or franchising. I think I have too good of a life to get myself in that. So I've thought about it. And besides, the numbers don't really make sense either at a certain scale, especially with franchising. So 5 to 10 locations in the region would be a nice little life.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other competition? I know you mentioned that big box store experience that you went to, but is there any other competition that you guys face at all?
In terms of cooking classes in particular?
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but if we entered the pandemic with 3 considerable competitors in our area, I think 2 are gone because of the pandemic, I suspect, and gone for good. And then the big box stores still humming along and doing their thing, but it's just such a different experience. So I like to think that we are a superior product to them, even though they have the brand name. But I don't even consider cooking classes to be really our competition. I think our competition is things like axe throwing for corporate outings. There are a lot of corporate outings these days. Shuffleboard, axe throwing, candle making. So that's our competition on the corporate side. And then, I mean, there's always competition on the public and casual side with bars and restaurants. So I don't focus too much on other cooking classes. I think we're better, and I think you just stay focused and do your thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, hey, no competition. That's pretty solid.
Well, yeah, I think there's still a few. There's still a couple.
Yeah.
So just doing our best.
Mm-hmm. Now, as an entrepreneur, is there one thing that you could look back on before you started that you wish you knew before you started?
Oh my gosh, there's dozens. I, by far though, my most significant answer is I just wish I had more perspective going into it, that this would take time and it would be emotionally taxing and it wouldn't be as easy as I thought it was going to be, because that just ruined me, and shame on me. I kind of let it. And that's what the first thing I tell other people. I remember I sat down with one of my mentors about a month after we opened, and I asked her, I billed it as, "Hey, you want to chat? I want to ask you for some advice." And really it was just a pity session. And I was just basically crying in front of her, like, "It's not working out. This is hard." And she kind of said, like, "Screw you. Like, who do you think you are that you're just going to open a business and it's going to be really popular right off the bat?" Like, it took me 3 years. So, by far my biggest mistake was not having perspective, not having emotional stability in those early days. And I wish I had done that differently.
It's almost impossible to have that. I mean, especially if you're doing poorly of what you expected.
And like I said, if you do, you wouldn't do it. If you know what it's going to be like, shit, I wouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be naive to some extent, but it kind of wrecked me for months.
Well, now you're stronger because of it. I mean, in the second store, you said that you were more steady and ready to go and be patient. So
yeah,
that's how it is, I guess. Now, what's one of your best successes and what's one big mistake that you made along the way?
Okay. By far, our greatest success and my greatest success is attracting some really great employees, especially our director of operations. That is by far my biggest accomplishment and the best thing we've done. And all the credit goes to her, obviously, for being so great. But that's been transformational. And I'm sure I'll look back in 10 years and think that was the transforming factor in our business. So finding her and really doing a good job to help her out and give her the best resources to succeed was my greatest accomplishment. And then biggest mistake, greatest failure on the other side of that coin is I opened the business with a similar individual, like a full-time instructor. And because I was such a mess emotionally and I was always so stressed out and tense, I kind of scared her away, and I worked her pretty hard, and I just didn't build that good connection and culture in the business early on. And she walked away about 6 months later. Good for her, as she should have. And shame on me. So I learned a lot from that experience, so that when I did it again with this new director of operations, I did a lot better.
Do you have a process for hiring any individual, or is it just kind of screen through applications, or what's your process?
We do not have a process, nothing formal. We get a lot of inquiries just by virtue of the fact that people think it's like the funnest, most sexy job in the world, and it's really not. But so everyone's on Instagram, and everyone's always hitting us up to see if they can be an instructor. So we get plenty of inquiries, which is nice, but we sit them down, and the first thing we say is, this is not the job you think it is. It's very difficult, it's very taxing, and it takes a lot of energy and a lot of dirty work. And half the people walk away right there when we just scare the hell out of them on purpose. And past that, we just, no. I mean, we train pretty good, and we just hit our culture. It's about entertainment. It's about theater. It's about making people laugh. It's not about who's the best cook. It's not about, and I don't know, it's really hard to find good people for this job. Because think, if you own a restaurant, you don't need the head chef to be charismatic. He's in the back, or she's in the back, and no one, you don't really talk, or your sous chef or your chef de cuisine. But with this job, you need someone who is technically very competent and good and can cook and find their way out of a bad situation. But you need someone who can control a room, and usually a room of drunk people, and be that personality and that bubbling presence. And that's very difficult to do. So we're not just looking for cooks, we're looking for entertainers.
Mm-hmm. Is it more of an emphasis on the entertainment, and then they can learn the cooking side of it? Or is it, maybe a mix? I don't.
In terms of, you mean attracting instructors?
Well, do you think you could hire somebody with no cooking experience, but they're like a great entertainer?
Okay, that's funny you say that, because we have this conversation every day as we are trying to grow the business and get new people. No, you need people who can cook.
Yeah.
And at this point, we've sort of defaulted to like going to culinary schools and saying, do you have any graduates coming down the pipe? And then we look for personality, because there's too much of a demand for technical expertise in what we do. And you need to, if things go wrong in a class, you need someone who can cook their way out of it. And we can't be worrying about people's ability to do that. Yeah. So we start with a culinary requirement, and then we go for personality. Okay. And it only works about literally one in every 20 people, 25.
Okay. Well, I was just a little interested in that on your hiring, because it seems like an interesting job to hire somebody for. It's like I'm kind of out of the box, so it's a little interested.
It's tough.
So I found you on Instagram. Is that your main social media, your main marketing? And then kind of tell me how you were able to build that Instagram platform up.
Yeah, I like talking about this. So Instagram is by far our biggest social media platform. Most followers, most engagement. But we do get a lot of good marketing from just press. We haggle our way onto TV and in newspapers and whatnot pretty often. So that's really effective as well. But Instagram, we have an interesting strategy on Instagram. We try to keep things like almost irreverently informal and super authentic. We're not professionals on Instagram. Proudly, we keep it really casual and down to earth and sort of inappropriate. And I think that resonates with people. I think, if you're just following a business on Instagram and they're telling you about their St. Patrick's Day discount, or this is our class that's coming up, that's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of stale. What we do is we make a joke of it, and we have a lot of fun. And we've gotten into some trouble for it, but we've gotten some traction because of it as well.
Well, what was the trouble? What was that like?
Oh gosh, it's a handful of times. Where we're always right on that edge of
just crossing the line at somebody's.
We don't get into politics. We don't get into truly truly sensitive things. But we'll post videos. I don't know. We'll photo the drunk people and we'll draw faces on our guests and post pictures and just stuff like that. And people are, I think some of our followers, because they'll come into class. Some of our Instagram followers will come in to our class and be like, I'm here because of Instagram, because of your Instagram, because it's so crazy. And yeah, it just, I don't know, it kind of works. It's fun.
Now, have you tried TikTok at all? Have you tried posting anything on that?
No, and shame on us. I mean, we've done one TikTok video that we carried over to Instagram, but we're a weird social media business because we're expensive. We're an expensive service, so we're not trying to appeal to like a bunch of high schoolers or even like young people. And a lot of our good customers are a little bit older. And I don't know. I think we don't sell on social media. We don't do any selling. We just do eye-catching and provocative stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's a tough thing to do because we're such a weirdly diverse. We're going for such a diverse demographic. We just stick to Instagram. Basically, we have a Facebook, but we just stick to Instagram mainly and just post provocative things and just hope for the best. And we don't really delve too much into the new TikToks and whatnot.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, you said if you're going for that type of individual, Instagram's perfect for that. I mean,
yeah,
primarily I'd say 25 to 45-year-olds, I guess.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're looking for.
That's your hot pocket. Like that's I mean, those are people right out of school. So you got all those people. So I mean,
yeah,
just keep it to what it is. I usually tell everyone to be on TikTok because it is actually, I feel you can blow up randomly, and I think it is starting to become more diversified since like a couple months ago. But
I know, I agree. Shame on me. I'm so afraid of something not working. So like, I'm afraid of going on TikTok and it not working, then I'll be all demoralized. It's stupid.
Well, as we wrap up, do you have any motivational or just, I guess, I don't know, words of advice to other inspiring entrepreneurs?
Definitely, like I said, be prepared for it to be orders of magnitude more difficult and take longer than you think, for sure. And then people always ask me, like, how did you, because I obviously quit that job and was an engineer and now I'm doing this. People always ask me, I want to start my own business. I want to do my own thing. How did you know you were ready? And I think really simple. I was kind of a weird example because I like had no choice. Like I was miserable. And I don't know, I would have been in the ground by now if I didn't do this. But I think that moment of clarity where you really should do something is if you would rather fail at trying and try to do it and fail than to keep doing what you're doing and succeed. And I said to myself very clearly, I was like, I would rather try this cooking class business and fail in a year than stay in this job and climb the ladder and be successful. And when you have that moment, then literally there's nothing to lose. You know what you need to do. And then just be prepared for a lot of pain, but a lot of fun. I mean, I sit here right now and it's almost laughable how enjoyable the whole journey is.
This is just a random question, but were you having more fun on those side jobs at those restaurants than you were at your corporate job?
That's a really interesting question. No one's ever asked me that question. More fun? Maybe, sure. But was it definitely more? I felt like I was doing something really great, like fun, like fulfilling, and I was on a journey, and it was an adventure. So yes, I love every second of that. Every second of it. And if you have a side gig that you feel is just fills your tank and gets you amped up, then that probably tells you something, I think.
That's what I always tell. I tell a lot of people, find a side gig, maybe start a blog, write about some hobby of yours. It's not going to blow up immediately because it's a saturated market, but if you like doing it, it might catch on eventually and you might lead you on to other things. You never know. So,
and I've become so much of the theory that there is no such thing as a dumb idea. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think when I started this business, a lot of very smart people were like, this is not a real business. This is not going to work out. And just a couple of years later, I've seen so many businesses that just on paper look and sound so implausible and ridiculous and silly. And I've seen them be wildly successful, either because of quality or marketing or the individuals behind it. And so now there is not a single business idea that you could come at me with where I would wholly question. I think anything has potential. So even if you think your side gig is silly, it's like I've seen some silly things work out.
I mean, you go down the street into any like shopping complex or whatever. I don't know where you live, but if you're like in a business district, you will see some weird built, like weird stores that no one has ever gone into, that you like. I've lived here, 3 years. I've never seen anyone in the store, and they have a profit. I guess they have a storefront still. So if they can do it, I'm like, I can do this way better. Like I can.
I mean, just there are so many silly ideas that have done great things. So there's no such thing as a definitively bad idea.
That's true. Now, Charlie Denk, Stir Studios, thanks for coming on. How can they find you? How can they contact you guys?
So our website's pretty good. stirstudiokitchen.com. That sort of has everything you need. You can just Google Stir Cleveland. That will probably work too. And then if you want to follow us along and see some of our shenanigans, Instagram is good, at Stir Studio Kitchen. Same with Facebook. Or just give us a call and come hang out with us. And we're always good for a handful of cocktails and bad stuff. So yeah, website, stirstudiokitchen.com.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on again.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too.
Wait, I will